Okay, so welcome to the stream today as we look at our final paper coming on tomorrow, strategy case study, and see the various things that we can look at generally when it comes to case study. And I believe that you've had an interesting period if you had written, you have written some papers from Monday throughout, and today was a resting day for you guys. And so I believe that you are preparing yourself for tomorrow pretty well. Remember that tomorrow's paper is 9 a.m. So just be mindful of that. It's not your normal 2 p.m. situation and all that. So you want to be mindful of that as well as you go in the exam hall tomorrow. All right, so I want to get excited quickly and go into my discussion with you and share some thoughts with you generally as we try to see what we can do. Now, before I get excited, I want to just share some thoughts with you quickly as we go into my discussion, and we've started already in that particular case. You have to understand that the strategic case study exam is different from any other paper. And I believe that by now you know that already. So the case study paper is not like your corporate reporting exam. It's not like your taxation exam. It's not like your advanced audit and assurance exam. This is a different paper in its own class on its own. Why am I saying that? I am saying this because if you think you're going to walk into the exam hall tomorrow with the mindset like the paper is a corporate reporting or advanced audit and assurance advanced taxation paper, may I suggest to you that you are going to fail the paper. And let me also hit you that the average pass mark for the strategic case study examination is 10%. What it means is that for the most part, the exam coming up, when the results are released, if you take 100 people, only 10 of them are going to be passing. That's the average. If you take 10 people, only one is going to pass. Now, why is it like that? It's like that because of how strategic case study is. So the first thing that I want you to understand is this, which I have told you over and over again. It is not about your analysis that you have read on the Preseen. The exam that you are going to write is not about the analysis that you have read. So I don't care whatever the heck analysis you have from whatever the heck source it is. The exam you are going to write tomorrow is not about any analysis that you have read. Your ability to pass the case study examination is dependent on your ability to be able to understand the syllabus. So it is about the syllabus structure. Knowing about the structure of the syllabus, the content of the syllabus, and the structure of the examination, and what to look out for in the exam, that is what will make you to pass the examination. So if your thoughts are, yeah, I have analysis, 100 pages, yeah, this is this analysis, I'm going to read, you're going to go and fail the examination. You will fail because you're going to see a lot of things in the exam hall that you're not going to be familiar with. So the first thing I want to really get out of the way is your ability to pass the case study examination is about understanding what is in the syllabus, not what you came up with in the Preseen. It is not about what you came up with in the Preseen. It's about what is in the syllabus. So the big question you need to ask yourself is, have I read the case study book? How many percentage of the topics in the strategic case study that I have studied, that I know off head? Because as you walk into that exam hall tomorrow, it is not about your analysis of the Preseen. It is about what is in the syllabus. The reason I want to really get this caution out of the way is because some of you think it's about the analysis. Yeah, okay, so based on the analysis, these are the things that are likely to come up. And so, yeah, Charlie, that is all. No. It is about what is in the syllabus. It is about what is in the course. It is about what you are expected to see in the exam hall. So if you have anything to do from now till tomorrow, you write the examination, it is not about reading any analysis. It is about trying to go through the strategic case study manual, try to go through the strategic case study book, go through the syllabus and ask yourself, do I understand everything in the various aspects of the syllabus? That is how you can pass the strategic case study examination. Again, average pass mark is 10%, and it is because of the same thing. People think it's about analysis of the Preseen. It is not about the analysis of the Preseen. It is about what is in the syllabus. So what I want to do tonight is to try to walk you through the structure of the syllabus and then the various areas of the syllabus that the examiner is going to be throwing questions at, and then pinpoint a number of issues that you have to really focus on under each of the segments of the syllabus, because the questions are going to be coming from these segments of the syllabus. And so once you understand these segments of the syllabus with some level of contextualization to the Preseen, definitely I'll do some level of contextualization to the Preseen, definitely, then you can go into the exam hall and be able to write what you have to write and pass the examination. So please, it is not about your analysis of the Preseen. Nobody cares about that. The examiner is interested in what is in the syllabus, not what is your analysis of the Preseen. That is just something I want you to get finally as you head into the exam hall tomorrow, so that whatever analysis that you have at your disposal, that you have decided to read and bend the midnight candle of tonight, if you go to the exam hall and there is nothing in that analysis in the exam hall, you won't be surprised, because it is not about analysis. It's about what is in the syllabus. So that is really the key mindset I want you to have about the examination, that it is about what is in the syllabus, not what your analysis of the Preseen. So getting that out of the way, let's get excited. Let me pop up my let me see if I can bring up my screen here, and then we can get excited into my discussion, going through the various things that I can share my thought with you on. There we go. Okay. So first things first, we want to look at the scope of the examination. That's the first thing I want us to look at. The scope of the examination. The 100 marks question that is going to be asked in the exam hall, what are the areas that the examiner is going to be bringing the questions from, and what are we supposed to be on the lookout for generally at the end of the day? I'm going to also try to tease you on a number of strategies and context, like I said, in the context of the Preseen a little bit as I go through these areas, because my goal is to get you through the syllabus, let you understand some key issues in the syllabus as you prepare for the exam tomorrow, and have some little contextualization as well. So the scope of the examination. Our exam that is we are going to be writing tomorrow is going to be coming from a couple of areas. The first area, ultimately, it's going to be what we call the business strategy. It depends on how excited the examiner is. Between 30 to 40% of the questions that will be coming tomorrow. Again, it depends on how excited the examiner is. The examiner can just do 10. He can do 15. He can do 20. It depends on how excited he is. But based on the syllabus weighing, we are going to be having questions coming in from business strategy. Now, business strategy is one of the voluminous areas in the strategic case study syllabus. Here, we are covering issues such as environmental analysis. So this is where we are looking at all the types of environmental analysis that you can think about as a strategist or a consultant to help a company to make a decision. Okay, to help a company to make a decision. Now, when we come to environmental analysis, the examiner can come from any area. For the most part, there is about a 90% chance that the examiner will bring you something under environmental analysis. Maybe 10 marks question waiting for you in the exam hall under environmental analysis. But the question we need to ask ourselves is, what are we covering under environmental analysis? Yes, we're talking about a macro environment. That's the first part, the macro environment. In the macro environment, this is where we are using the PISTL framework. So either we're going to be looking at the macro environment in the context of the PISTL framework. Now, when does this framework become valid? The framework becomes valid anytime an entity is seeking to make any strategic decision. In the context of our question prestige or our Preseen prestige, the organization is, within, it's operating in Ghana, certainly. And so there are a lot of macro environmental factors going on in Ghana, and we have discussed the PISTL analysis, looked at talking about the political factors, economic factors. Now, we mentioned that when it comes to the political factors, yes, we are talking about stability, governance, threats of civil or unrest. We are talking about issues about the various rules and regulations that are put in place by governing bodies. All that will be under political factors. In economic factors, we are looking at issues such as the contribution of the industry to the GDP of the country in question. And also we are looking at the various economic variables and how they influence the activities of the entity and what the entity must do in order to overcome those economic variables. And those economic variables, on the flip side, will either become an opportunity or a threat to the organization, which is the second thing that I'm going to look at in a moment, which is going to be SWOT analysis. Then we come to the social factors. The social factors has to do with the belief system, the social norms, the culture, the pattern of behavior, the social classes, the demography of the people within the country. All right. So what is the behavior pattern? How aware are they? What are their demand? And all of those things. Social factors, technological factors. What are the advancements in IT that is ruling or controlling the industry in question? Ecological factors. What is the impact of the entity's operations on the environment, and how responsible or otherwise should the organization be? Legal factors. What are the laws? And so if you remember, we discussed in class that on the macro or external environmental analysis perspective, we did that for Ghana based on the context of the Preseen, and we also did that for Cote d'Ivoire. Sorry. We did that also for the country that they are planning to go into, because if you remember in the Preseen, Prestige is seeking to enter the international market, and if an organization is seeking to enter international markets, the examiner can pull a question to you and ask you what are the factors they must consider before deciding to have the joint venture arrangement with the other parties that they want to join with in that country. Such a question, you can answer it using the PISTL framework, where you look at the political factors in that country, the economical factors in that country, the social factors, the technological availability, the ecological factors, and the laws or legal factors in that country. So it depends on the way the context of the question is going to be. We can use the principles coming in from the PISTL framework to answer it if we are asked what factors should the entity consider before ultimately deciding to merge with to do the joint venture arrangement with the two other real estate companies in the country that they are planning to go into. So that is the macro environment or external environmental analysis. So you remember we did one for Ghana and we did one for the other country that they are going into. And like I said, the examiner can ask you specifically, directly, to use the PISTL framework to analyze the environment, the nature of the environmental factors and their influences on the entity here in Ghana. And also he can ask you the nature of the environmental factors and their influences on the operations of the entity if they decide to go into that foreign country. That means the examiner is asking you to apply the PISTL framework. Or like I said, we can have a question which is generic. What factors should the entity consider before ultimately going into that country? Such questions, if you are going to answer it, you can come from the PISTO framework, use the principles under the PISTO framework to answer them. Because if an entity is seeking to go international, definitely we have to know the political system there. And we are told that in that country, there's a lot of political instability, military takeover, and all of those things. What are the economical factors there? What are the social factors there? Are there technological, advancement available in that country, or we have to import it into that country? What are the environmental factors there? So that's the structure of the way we can apply the PESTO framework. It depends on the context of the question, but like I said, these are the ways that the examiner can structure ourselves up, or can structure us up, and then boom, he will ask us to write on. Let me also say that the examiner can just throw you in the lion's den, which means that he doesn't want you to contextualize anything. It will just be blank for you to talk about the PESTO framework. No contextualization, no nothing, just blank like that. He just want to pick your brain to understand whether you know the framework, not contextualize it to the Preseen or to the case study. Just write it out for him. He can do that, and he has done that over and over again. But that is the macro environment. Then we come to the second level, and that is going to be the internal environment. In the internal environment, we are broadly going to be talking about SWOT analysis, where we are looking at the strength and weakness of the organization. Primarily, we are looking at the strategic capacity and the strategic position of the entity. If you remember, in the context of the Preseen, the finance director had asked the management accountants to analyze or look into the strategic position of the entity to help the entity decide about the various strategies that they want to undertake. Remember, they want to acquire some lands at Dodowa. They want to put in place some new IT systems. They want to also enter the international market. All of these things are strategic decisions, and before they make these decisions, it is important they understand their capacity and they understand their strategic position as well. So under strategic capacity, what are we talking about? Here we are talking about the strength, what the entity is endowed with, and the weaknesses, the internal limitations that prevents the entity from achieving its objectives. Strategic position, we are talking about the threats and then the various opportunities that are available in the marketplace. So the strategic position is going to give us an idea about the market share of the entity, whether the entity is leading in the market or otherwise in that particular case. And that is SWOT analysis. So you got to be careful here. The examiner can throw a question at you directly and ask you to prepare SWOT analysis for prestige. Boom. So in that case, under the strength, you can write 4 of the strength. Under the weaknesses, 4 of the weaknesses. Under the opportunities, 4. Under the threat, 4. So the examiner can throw you directly to prepare SWOT analysis for the entity. On the other hand, the examiner can also ask you to discuss the strategic position of the entity and how the entity can use that to be able to gain competitive advantage in the industry. And so if the examiner it's coming in from the strategic position of the entity, you are still looking at the environmental analysis context, but this time around you're going to be focusing around threats and opportunities, because that is what will help us to analyze the strategic position of the entity. So again, be mindful. The reason I'm trying to do some of these things is that sometimes you go into the exam hall, and because many of you have not read the book, many of you over the last 13 weeks have never sat down to read strategic case study. It is just the last 1 week that you have started doing some shabu work, and that is even based on the Preseen analysis. Because many of you have not read the context of the model and everything, you don't know the keywords which when used triggers which model must be applied. And this is why a lot of people fail the case study examination, because people go to the exam and say, oh, no model was there. Which planet are you on? You went to case study examination and no model was there, or you didn't understand the question. Yeah, you didn't understand the question because you hadn't read the book. So be mindful of the context of the question, because the context of the question and your understanding of the models trigger which model you can draw inspiration from to be able to answer the question. Because like I said, when it comes to the strategic business strategy, we're going to have 30 or 40% of the questions coming in from there, and you better be in a good position to be able to answer that. So that is internal environmental analysis. Then we still, under the environmental analysis, we look at the industry, right? Competitive analysis. So this is where the examiner could ask you, yeah, analyze the industry in which the entity is operating. That's very easy. Analyze the industry the entity is operating. Okay. Another way you could put that is analyze the factors that are in the industry in which Prestige operates to be able to assess their competitive advantage. Analyze the industry that the entity operates to be able to gain sustainable competitive advantage. All right, that is still under environmental industry analysis. And what do we use there? Porter's 5 forces. Okay, Porter's 5 forces. So under the Porter's 5 forces, Michael Porter said there are 5 factors that affect and influences the competitiveness of the industry. And if you remember, we discussed this also in class with some contextualization to the Preseen. Yeah, we are looking at threat from new entrants. Hey, how easily or hard it is for new companies to enter the industry. And on the overall, we mentioned that in the context of this particular question, although there are laws that must be met, yes, there is a little capital requirement, the local knowledge about which type of houses to build, because they build the houses before they market and sell them, and all of those things, although these can be hindrances because of the fact that majority of the industries work can be outsourced, and the use of modern methods of construction, the threat from new entrants can relatively be seen as very high, because people can just troop into the industry and start building. Then we came to issues in relation to threat from substitutes products in that particular case. So remember, we said the real estate industry, there's no substitute, because substitute means another thing that can serve that same purpose. Okay, so is there a substitute? Nah, because I mean, if you won't sleep in a room, you will want to sleep in a tree or sleep in your car. Yeah, you could sleep in your car, but how long can you do that? So threat from substitute products here, not good. Then we spoke about the issue in respect of how do we call it, the competitive rivalry in the industry. Yeah, we said yes, the industry is highly competitive in that particular case. So we could be asked to go that angle, industry environmental industry analysis. And like I said, it is important to understand the context of the question, and then whether Porter's 5 forces principles can apply. So macro environment, external factors, we want to go international, we just want to make some strategic decisions. SWOT analysis, yes, we still want to analyze our capacity and our position, that we need to know our strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities. The industry that we are in, how competitive it is, and what strategies can we implement as an entity to gain sustainable competitive advantage. Then we use the Porter's 5 forces. But we are not done. Still in the environmental analysis, we want to go international. Okay, so we look at the international environmental analysis, and this is where we could be talking about the Porter's diamond. Okay, Michael Porter's diamond. So under the Michael Porter's diamond, you remember we discussed this also in class. Michael Porter suggests that there are 4 key factors that, makes a nation competitive in a specific industry relative to another industry. But remember, the examiner can present you to can ask you to do Porter's diamond without comparing any 2 country things. So you can be asked to do Porter's diamond for Prestige here in Ghana. So you should be able to know those factors: availability of factor, condition, the domestic demand. We said if it is sophisticated, that will push customers or the entities to be able to do what they have to do, generally for the most part. Then we spoke about availability of related and supporting industries, because if they are there, then certainly the industry is going to be competitive here locally, and that will push them to then go international. So Porter's Diamond is also going to be there. Although, like I said, it relates to international environmental analysis issues, the examiner can just throw you in the lion's den like that to ask you to do a Porter's Diamond analysis for the company, and that means you're going to be contextualizing everything based on the information we are given in the pre-scene, and then picking up the various items there and then making conclusion as to what the company has to do. But still, in the international environmental analysis, this is where we could talk about probably some issues about globalization, taking into consideration management orientation. If you remember, we shared some thoughts on management orientation. We said it is the perspective that management have of the international market. And so we mentioned that as Prestige, our firm in the pre-scene, is seeking to go international because the board and everybody has now decided that, hey, listen, they have to go international. They cannot wait any longer. It is important for them to go international. Okay, so if they're going to go international, what orientation, how are they going to see the international market? What strategies would they adopt? If you remember, we spoke about the ethnocentric strategy, where we said that the management will believe that their home country is superior above the international market, and hence the strategies that are successful in the home country, they will just duplicate the same strategy in the foreign markets. That is the ethnocentric strategy. The very 180 degrees of that is the polycentric strategy, where management believes that each market is distinctive, and hence it is not about what is working in the home country. They will treat each market separately, and then they will look at the local market, the strategies that will work there, the various policies, marketing campaigns that will work there, they will implement there. So in ethnocentric, it looks like they use a centralized organizational structure, because every decision would have to be made in the home country. Then in the foreign country, managers, they would have to implement those decisions. But then in a polycentric orientation, it is going to be a decentralized organizational structure, where each of the markets will make their own decisions, will implement their own strategies relative to what is likely to work in their specific markets, right? Then we spoke about the issue in respect of regiocentric, where we said that the organization is going to see a collection of markets to have the same characteristics. So for instance, they see the African market and say, oh, okay, all the people in Africa behave in the same way. All the people in Asia behave in the same way. So all their companies in Asia, boom, one strategy they apply to all the people in Asia. One strategy they apply to all of the markets that they are controlling in Africa. That is regiocentric. So management orientation, also something that could be something that we have to know about, and that is international environmental analysis. So when it comes to that first part of the discussion, environmental analysis, pistol framework, SWOT analysis, Porter's five forces, international, Porter's diamond, and then globalization orientation, and all of these things can be asked there. So that is the first thing if you want. Now remember, even under the issue in respect of the internal environmental analysis, there is a concept there called brainstorming. You know, this is where you are bringing the managers together at a certain sitting or at a certain time for them to bring up ideas about what problems we have available and what strategies they think we can use to fix those particular problems. So brainstorming could also be thrown in that particular discussion. But that is the first thing we must understand: environmental analysis. Again, like I said, depending on how excited the examiner is, at least one of these guys will be in the exam hall tomorrow, because environmental analysis, it's a crucial aspect for every organization's operation. So at least one of these guys could be in the exam hall for 10 marks. But if you go and there is nothing about them also, don't take it personal. other things are there that the examiner can ask you about. But that is the idea about environmental analysis. Then, in addition to that, we have the corporate appraisal, which I've already chipped into the environmental analysis in terms of the issue in respect of those SWOT analysis that we are doing. But beyond that, beyond the SWOT analysis thing, we can take corporate appraisal a little bit outside the scope of SWOT analysis to look at performance measurement. Now, in the context of this question, we don't have a lot of information given to us to measure the performance of the organization. All we were told was that, oh, I think the board of director also was saying that, oh, their performance for 2022, sort of they are satisfied with the performance of 2022 in that particular case. So there was no much for us there, but you need to understand that you cannot reach conclusion just by looking at the pre-scene, because in the exam hall, like I said, it's not about the pre-scene, it's about what is in the syllabus. So on a larger scale, when it comes to dealing with issues about corporate appraisal, we will go beyond the analysis of the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats of the company and look at the performance of the organization on the overall. Okay, the performance of the entity on the overall. And this is where we can use various models to evaluate the performance of the organization. Again, there will be additional information in the exam hall. Looking at the nature of the pre-scene, the way it's voluminous, without any financial issues, maybe in the unseen or the additional information, there could be some financial issues there. We don't know. So balance scorecard, it's something that you want to make sure you get to know very well, because if we are going to analyze the performance of the organization, then we have to use both financial and non-financial indicators. So we have the financial perspective, assessing the profitability of the company and how the entity appears to its shareholders. Customer perspective, assessing the customer satisfaction level of the entity for the period under review, which means that ensuring that the entity is producing quality products at affordable prices and rendering good after sales services to the customers. Then we come to the internal business processes, which is going to be analyzing the efficiency and effectiveness of the internal controls, the employees, the systems, the softwares, the programs that the entity is using. Then we come to learning and innovations, the various measures that the entity has put in place in the current year. I don't know. Am I rushing? Let me know if I'm rushing, because I don't know. It just occurred to me probably I'm rushing a little bit throughout these things. Let me know if I'm rushing or the pace is okay. All right, so that I don't get too much excited, because sometimes if I get too much excited, I'll be rushing through the things. But I want you to also sink some of these things in. So let me know if I'm rushing or the pace is okay, so that I can slow it down. Okay, you're saying it's okay for you here. All right, that's fine for me. Thanks be to God that I'm not rushing. Okay, so learning and innovation, we are looking at the systems or the things that the entity has put in place in the current year to improve upon its internal business processes. So that's spotters, balance scorecard. The examiner can throw you in 10 marks. Use the balance scorecard to analyze the performance of the entity, which means he will give you some information in the additional information. Again, we are not caring about the pre-scene. It's about what is in the syllabus. Yo. Or the examiner can just ask you 10 marks straight. Explain how Prestige, or explain how the balance scorecard can assist the company to measure its performance. 10 marks. That's the lion's den question. It means no contextualization, nothing. You just write in English. So financial perspective, customer perspective, internal business processes, you dey write the learning and innovation, you dey write the no contextualization. So the examiner can throw you in the lion's den like that, where you're not doing any contextualization. If it gets goosebumps, then in the additional information, it will bring you something there, which will then help you to be able to look at the contextualization for Prestige, if he wants you to do that. Number 2 on the performance evaluation is where we're going to focus on just the financial indicators. Okay, financial indicators. So again, we don't know what the unseen information is going to be, because remember, performance evaluation is, or corporate appraisal is, again a crucial aspect of our job as consultants at this level for the most part. So the financial indicators, usually this is where we're going to be using ratios. So please, we don't know what will come in the unseen. For that reason, and remember, case study is bringing everything together in one. So there is corporate reporting here, there is management accounting here, there is financial management here, and everything some. So please make sure you go through your ratios calculation and the interpretation, because it's part of corporate appraisal in that particular case. Next, the balance scorecard usually is meant for manufacturing companies. So companies that are not in the manufacturing sector sometimes find it difficult to use the balance scorecard. And so there's an alternative method or model, which is the Fitzgerald and Moon building block. Okay, the Fitzgerald and Moon building block. Again, it's about the syllabus, not about your analysis. It's about the syllabus. So we have the Fitzgerald and Moon building block, where we are looking at the dimensions, the aspect of performance measurements that the entity would want to measure, standards, the KPIs that the entity will set for each of the performance aspects that they want to measure, and then rewards, the reward system put in place for the employees when they achieve the KPIs under each of the dimensions. So under the Fitzgerald and Moon, we're looking at dimensions, the aspect of performance that we want to measure, standards, the key KPIs that we set for each of the aspects of performance under the dimensions, and then reward, the reward system that is put in place for the employees to be able to achieve the KPIs that are set in that particular case. So the Fitzgerald and Moon building block, it's also something that the examiner can throw at you. Again, it can be a lion's den question where the examiner will ask you to just talk about it, or there could be some level of contextualization where we will want to assess the performance of Prestige. Again, the additional information would then provide you with the details to be able to then use the Fitzgerald and Moon building block to evaluate the performance of the organization. So beyond the SWOT analysis bit on corporate appraisal situation, we can expand that discussion a little bit to performance measurement of the entity, where the balance scorecard is coming in, traditional ratio analysis, or the Fitzgerald and Moon building block in that particular case. And these are a couple of things that we need to understand. Again, it depends on whatever structure the examiner would want to go. You may go to the exam hall tomorrow and there is nothing about performance measurement. It is his decision. It is what he wants to do. But it is important you have an idea about the syllabus and going to the exam hall generally. So that is corporate appraisal as well in that particular case. And then certainly the last thing that we can talk about will be the issue about stakeholder mapping. It's a very crucial aspect because, you know, at the end of the day, it is important we know the various stakeholders that an entity is has, and the influence of these stakeholders on the operations and the strategies of the organization. If you remember, in the context of Prestige, there are a lot of things that they are seeking to do. Number one, they want to acquire some lands at Dodowa and build some new houses and sell. That's a strategic decision. Okay, that decision that they want to make, who are the key stakeholders that will have power to influence the decision, and what should Prestige do? So that is one decision. Number two, the entity is seeking to also adopt an IT system so that it can centralize a couple of operations. Okay, who are the key stakeholders that may have power to influence that decision or otherwise? Number three, the entity is seeking to go international, have a joint venture arrangement, and they are looking at two companies that they are in that country to have a joint venture arrangement with. Okay, who are the key stakeholders in respect of that, and what are their influence, and how can they affect the decision that Prestige is seeking to make? And so stakeholder mapping is crucial to each of the strategic decisions that Prestige is seeking to make. whether it is the land they want to buy at Dodowa, the IT system that they want to put in, the international strategy that they are seeking to undertake, or the overall change management issue that they are looking at implementing, and the various organizational structure that they want to put in place. Stakeholder mapping is going to be key. So stakeholder mapping simply has to do with identifying the key stakeholders of the entity and looking at their interest as well as their power, and the company deciding what it must do in order to make sure that the strategy becomes successful. And so we can use the Mendello metrics to look at the stakeholders' influence and then make a decision about that. So who are the stakeholders? And remember, depending on the school of thought you are in, we can have internal stakeholders, external stakeholders. We can have internal stakeholders, connected stakeholders, external stakeholders. So stakeholder mapping is also another thing that we need to understand there when it comes to that business strategy area in that particular case. So these are the key issues under the business strategy 30-40 marks area there. But in addition to these big guys that I have just walked you to for the 30-40 mark area coming in the exam hall, mission, that introductory issues, if you pick your strategic case study book, whatever strategic case study book that you pick, that introduction issues like mission, what are the elements of mission? It's a question the examiner can throw at you. What are the elements of mission? The mission of the company must tell us about the purpose of the company, the vision of the company, what it's seeking to achieve, the strategies of the company. So what are the elements? So those introductory issues, the examiner can ask you questions about them. And then certainly the issue about organizational structure. Because one of the things in Prestige, the Preseen, is, hey, they have not rationalized the organizational structure. If you have read the case study, the Preseen well, they have not rationalized the organizational structure. So again, the examiner could get some goosebumps and throw you in the lion's den for organizational structure situations. And organizational structure is a big aspect for each organization. And that is also still part of our business strategy area. So if you remember in class, we solved a question about the organizational structure, organizational configuration, and all of those things. Make sure you go through them again, because that is still part of our 30-40 mark area. You see that there's a lot of things here? Yeah, there's a lot. Okay, so which one should I focus on? I don't know. So don't ask me. But that is the syllabus. And you have to learn everything in the syllabus. When you go the 30 and 40 mark questions, they're going to be coming from these areas in business strategy. I'm done. That's the first part of the syllabus. Any questions on the business strategy perspective? Maybe you want to seek a brief clarity on something like that. Those of you with me on Zoom, you can raise your hand and bring you up, or put it in the chat for me. Those of you joining us on YouTube as well as on Facebook also, you can put it in the chat for me, and I'm going to try to bring your questions up in that particular case. Let's see. I'm seeing some questions coming up. Let's see if I can take them. Let's see if they relate to this particular area, because I need to bring this screen up. So business strategy, any questions for me? Let's see, what do I have here? Who the heck? Augustine, good evening. Okay, yeah, good evening. Who is this? Chilufai, good evening, sir. This is my first time meeting you on the live stream. It usually hurts to have pre-recorded lectures. Is this your new time for lectures? No, this is a special session we are having because of the examination. Our normal time for live streaming is 4:30 p.m. GMT. What else do I have? Valentina said it's okay. It's okay. I think when I was asking about my pace. Good evening, sir. I want to be part of your lectures, but I am using pre-debit card. I don't know. You can send a message on WhatsApp. You see a number scrolling below the screen. Send a message on WhatsApp. My executive assistant will assist you to be able to complete that. You are in Liberia. Okay, that's not a problem. So you can send a message on WhatsApp on the number on your screen, and my assistant will assist you in that. Okay, so I think there are no questions for me. Let me go back to my slide and let's go. So that's the first part. 30-40 marks. 30-40 marks. Okay. Now, let me say this also. There are a lot of other issues in that business strategy part, and that's I have not spoken about, but there are a lot of other issues also there. Because if you remember in class, we discussed a number of things. Because if the entity is seeking to expand and grow, okay, so as the entity is seeking to expand and grow, what are the alternative strategies available for the entity? Unsolved growth metrics. Okay, unsolved growth metrics. Market penetration strategy. Taking the product into the existing market, meaning you do more advertisement, customer loyalty programs and all that. Market penetration strategy. Okay. Then we have market development, taking the same product you are producing but entering a new market. So what Prestige is seeking to do to have a joint venture in a foreign country is a market development strategy. They are taking the houses that they are building, the skill sets, and they want to duplicate that in that country. So that is a market development strategy. And so what are the risks associated with that? What factors must we take into consideration for that strategy to become successful? It's a question the examiner can throw at us. Market development strategy. Then we have product development. So this is where the entity is going to introduce a new product into the existing market. And again, it looks like Prestige is trying to adopt that, because if they are now going to go away from the normal brick and mortar to use the modern methods of construction, then that can be seen as a product development strategy, because it's still going to be executed by their companies in Ghana. So, but it's going to be new type of houses which are environmentally sustainable. So that is a product development-ish strategy situation. Then we can talk up, and there are advantages and disadvantages of that. There are risks associated with that. There are various factors that must be present for that strategy to become successful. Then the last thing is going to be diversification. And if you remember, we discussed in class that there is a lot of money that the entity is leaving. They can do asset management. Right, so not only do they build and sell the houses, but they can now provide asset management services. That's a diversification, but that is a concentric diversification, because the asset management is directly related to the product, which is the houses they are selling to them. So that is a concentric diversification, because it's connected, right? So they can do asset management. We said it's an opportunity available which they are not currently doing, at least from the pre-scene. Maybe in the on-scene we will be told they are doing it, but that is a diversification, a concentric diversification situation. Conglomerate diversification is where they are going outside the real estate industry, and what can they do? Maybe they want to start producing and selling sanitary pad and condoms and those things. Yeah, then they are doing conglomerate diversification in that particular case. So if the entity is seeking to expand and grow, unsolved growth metrics. So the examiner can present you a scenario like that. What alternative strategies are available for Prestige as they are seeking to expand and grow? What alternative strategies? You don't have to think. That is unsolved growth metrics. Boom, boom, boom. There you go. So you're going to discuss all the four. Then you give a conclusion as to which one, as at where they are at, will be suitable for them. Because remember, any strategy you suggest for the company must meet the SAF principle. And I want you to be mindful of this, because there is a high possibility that the examiner is going to put you in that spot in the exam hall where there are alternative strategies available. But after you write all the alternative strategies, you have to let us know which one should a company adopt. So if about expansion and growing, market penetration, market development, product development, diversification. You have to discuss all the four. Okay, at the end of the day, which of the four should we go for? Now, when you are now centering around which strategy the entity or will be appropriate for the entity, then the SAF principle comes in. Remember, it's also a 10-mark question that the examiner can bring to you directly. He has brought it before, I think, just once, explaining the SAF principle, which is talking about suitability of the strategy. The strategy that the entity selects must fit into the mission, vision, and existing strategies of the entity for it to be successful. Acceptability, which is A, the strategy that the entity selects must be acceptable to all the key stakeholders of the entity. Shareholders must be willing to provide the funding, employees must be willing to work on the project, government authorities must be willing to give the regulatory clearance, management or the board must be willing to be committed to the execution of the strategy. So acceptability of the strategy to key stakeholders. And then F is feasibility, meaning that the strategy should be executable, if I can say that. In other words, can the entity execute the strategy? That is feasibility. So here we're going to look at some quantitative factors, some investment appraisal situation, ROI situation, as the finance director has asked the management accountant in the Preseen to do on the Dodowa project. He said, hey, don't do MPV for me, but I want you to look at the ROI on the project. That is feasibility they are trying to do to find out if it has a high ROI, why not? Let's go for it. But if it doesn't have a high ROI or it has a negative ROI, we better not go for it. So you got to be mindful of the SAF principle throughout. Are you getting it? So a company is seeking to expand and grow, unsolved growth metrics. Then another thing that we also spoke about, still under the business strategy, because it's a very broad area, just a couple of things that I shared with you there. It's going to be the issue about corporate parenting. Okay, so as the entity is seeking to undertake a joint venture with some companies outside, or as the entity is a parent company and it has some subsidiary, etiquette, whatever, and some other things, subprime, and whatever, I've forgotten the third one. But as there is a issue about parent and subsidiary, then corporate parenting styles is also something you need to know about, because the examiner can throw you in that jackpot. All right, what are the corporate parenting styles? We have strategic planning. This is where the head office is involved in every decision of the SBUs, the strategic business units. Right, so everything they do will be decided in the head office. Boom, they have to implement it. There are advantages and disadvantages for that. Then we have the financial control, which is where the parent entity lacks, for the most part, the knowledge required for each of the SBUs to be successful, and so they allow the SBUs autonomous, a high level of autonomy, and then they give them key financial indicators or KPIs that they will be using to measure their performance. That is financial control. Then we come to the last one called strategic control, which is where it's going to be partly some decisions will be made by the head office, and then some decisions will be made by the SBUs. And if you remember in our discussion, we said that looking at the way Prestige ran its organization with its subsidiaries, it looks like they are using the strategic control parenting style, because yes, some decisions are made by the board, but the implementation of the decision, the resources they need, the style of the building, the marketing and all that, it's not the head office that does it or the parent that does it. It's the SBUs, the subsidiaries, who will be doing those things. And so corporate parenting style is also going to be crucial here, something you need to know about. Again, it's in the syllabus. Okay, so I'm trying to do some level of contextualization to the Preseen, but it's also something that is in the syllabus that we must know about. Then certainly still under the corporate parenting issue is where we talk about the asterisk portfolio display. So if an entity is seeking to merge or acquire another entity, what do they look for? So the asterisk portfolio display will come in. I don't know, but I think that's a model the examiner has not really talked about though. But asset portfolio display, You got to know about it. We've discussed it. So this is where we said, hey, there are a lot of factors that the entity could consider in an acquisition or a merger arrangement, but we look at two things: feel and what's the other one? Benefits, right? Feel and benefit. So the feel is what they have in common. Benefit is the value that the parents can offer or add to the SBU, the potential SBU. So if they are in the same industry, then the feel is going to be high, which means the parents will have a lot of knowledge in the things that the subsidiary or the potential subsidiary needs. And so that kind of arrangement will be heartland businesses. And then we said that, okay, if they are not operating in the same industry, then the parents will not have knowledge in running them. So feel is going to be low, benefit is going to be low, and that is alien businesses. And so assured portfolio display. Again, there is a little contextualization in the Preseen, but as I'm saying always, it's not really about the Preseen, it's about the syllabus. Da 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 da. So these are a couple of things that we can, still talk about, still under the business strategy situation. Yeah, I know it's a lot. Some of you are already feeling overwhelmed and you're already sick, but it's not my fault. It's the syllabus. It's the syllabus. So these are some of the things that we need to understand when it comes to. Give me a sec. These are some of the things that we need to understand when it comes to business strategy. So for that 30 to 40 mark question, the examiner can come from any angle. So then it's plenty. I know, right? This is case study. So between 30 to 40 marks, everything that I've been discussing with you in the last 50 minutes, the examiner is going to be coming for you between 30 to 40 marks. Which one specifically? As always, I can't tell you. You can't also predict it. So you better know everything. Yeah, it's a lot, but you have to know everything. Okay? Again, if you go through the past questions, like I say always, I'll say then just 30. Yeah, you are lucky if you get 30. That's even a luck. Because sometimes the examiner gets goosebumps and decides to change the proportion of the questions from different segments of the syllabus. So you'll be lucky if you get 30 from this whole thing that I've mentioned here. But hopefully you can get 30 from some of these things that I've spoken about. So that's the idea there in that particular case. Okay, so gotta know them. All right. Okay, let's go. Second area is risk. Let me say that although this is a crucial aspect of the syllabus, not every time does the examiner get goosebumps on risk. Not every time. So if you go to the exam hall tomorrow and there's nothing on risk, don't take it personal, because again, it's not every time the examiner gets goosebumps on risk issues. But you gotta know it because it's in the syllabus, all right? And I was saying something. If you go through the past questions, you are wasting your time. Okay, again, if you go through the past questions, go through the past questions with a mind that, oh, okay, this is what the question said, and this is how the answer is, probably. But don't have any ideas, because there's nothing in the past question that the examiner will bring. Nothing. So don't bother yourself. Okay, because some of you by this time you've solved from 2019, and after this session you're going to look at 2023. No, you are wasting your time. Yes, I said it. You are wasting your time, because knowing the syllabus is good. So risk, the examiner may not get goosebumps a lot, but you have to know about it because it is in the syllabus. But when it comes to risk management, what the heck are we talking about? A lot of things here are some of the things you learned in financial management. Now, if you remember under the PESTO framework, the economic variables, most of the economic variables will be covered here as risk in that particular case, and how the entity will manage those risks. So looking at the way our Ghana city is misbehaving and depreciating, like that is a foreign exchange risk. Okay, if an entity is exposed to foreign exchange risk, what are the ways to protect them or reduce that risk, they can use hedging. Okay, what kind of hedging? There are various types of hedging, right? Invoicing in home country currency, leading and lagging, money market hedge, currency features, forward contract. Again, it is not about the Preseen, it's about what is in the syllabus. So don't come along and say, oh, in the question, the company is not operating in any international market. And so how can they be exposed to foreign exchange risk? Yo, if you go and the examiner asks you, then you'll be there and ask yourself, but the company doesn't pay. So you have to understand it. Then let's say that there are various types of risks, and we did some contextualization in class when we're discussing the Preseen. If you remember this, let's see if I can get my slide on that. I don't know if I can. Should be able to. So let's see if I can get my slide and throw something at you there quickly, or remind you quickly again about the contextualization on risks. So if you remember, we spoke about the various types of risks that Prestige is exposed to. That is contextualization. So the examiner can ask you, okay, for 10 marks, explain the types of risks that Prestige is exposed to in its industry and how these risks can be managed. 10 marks. Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful. The examiner can ask you like that. In that case, there is contextualization. Hence, you have to find out what are the risks that Prestige is exposed to. We spoke about technological risk, legal risk, health and safety risk, reputational risk, demand risk, market risk. These are some of the risks that Prestige is exposed to. Now, because if the question is what I said, explain the risks that Prestige is exposed to in its market and how the risks can be overcome, it means you are doing contextualization there. So you are going to explain these risks and how the entity can overcome each of these specific risks. But still under risk, it's going to be how that risk is going to be managed. And so there are several strategies that entities can use to manage the risk, and we've spoken about this as well. You want to make sure you go through it in that regard. Risk avoidance, risk reduction, risk transfer, risk retention, and all of those things. Then the ISO 31000 framework for risk management. This is a question the examiner is an area the examiner has asked, I think, twice in the past, because like I said, risk management is a fundamental area. You may get a question on risk management 10 marks, or there will be nothing there. Don't take it personal. But one of the areas is the ISO principle, which is looking at the risk architecture, risk strategy, risk protocols. There is no contextualization here. It will be a generic question for you to answer. So no contextualization for Prestige or for the case study. It is Lion's Den question. So you're going to explain what the ISO 31000 is if the examiner brings that to you. Specifically, he will state it like that if he will bring that to you. Then we spoke about the TARA framework as well in class, if you remember the TARA framework. So under risk management, these are a couple of things that we need to understand there. Now, there is a relationship between risk management and governance. I'll bring that up in a moment, but that is also the issue about risk management. So some key questions that we need to have here is, hey, what risks are likely to arise, and how likely do you consider it as they will materialize? So as this entity is seeking to go and have a joint venture arrangement with a company or some companies outside of Ghana, what are the risks associated with that decision? It's a question the examiner can ask you. What are the risks? Yeah. And you should be able to identify those risks and how they can manage those risks. You got to be mindful. Or, like I said, generically, as they are operating in Ghana, what risks are they exposed to currently? Which is the things we discussed when we were doing the discussion of the Preseen. Those things. Are you getting it? So again, it depends on the context of the question and the way you have to write your answers out. Then the impact of the risks on the entity's operation, and then the seriousness of the risks, then the recommendations that can be made as well. So risk is a 10 marks question area, give and take. If he gets goosebumps, he will make sure it's 20. If he doesn't like you, he's gonna give you 0 on direct management. Yeah, meaning he doesn't like you. And he has done that a couple of times where there was no question on risk. In that case, governance will go up a little bit, and then there are other things in the syllabus that he would just throw at you uh, that you might not have read because you didn't read the book, or you didn't take any lecture seriously. He can throw that at you. So that is risk management. Very sweet, simple, straight to the point there. That's all about that. Um, anything for me under risk management as the second area there? Anything for me? Let's see. Okay, nothing on YouTube yet, so I can continue. All right. Next one, ethics. Ethics. Ooh. Yes, ethics in strategy is in strategic case study, and we've discussed the issues here. It depends again on the. I told you if any decision that the entity is making, we have to look at the ethical aspect of that decision. So ethics is here. So the ethical theories, deontology, and those guys. The examiner can ask you. Then the examiner can also ask you what are the ethical issues that management face. It's a generic question. We spoke about this. Bribery, grease money, giving of gift. Like we said, if you go to Japan and you're going to see someone in authority, you need to go there with a gift because it's a normal thing in that culture. But you come to our place here and you try to go and visit the president and you go there with some envelope or some significant gifts. Yeah, they will say that you are coming to, you know, give the president something so that he can give you contract. But probably it's just a courtesy gift you are giving. Although that could be true, but so ethical issues is in strategic case study. But it is not what you know in audit and assurance. Don't bring yourself. It's not what you know in corporate reporting. Don't bring yourself. It's about looking at the ethics on both the individual level for the finance director, the management accountants, the board, and then the company as a whole. The company as a whole. Again, it depends. The examiner has done ethics, I think, only once or twice in the last 8 examination dates, but it depends on how excited the examiner is. He could have some issues coming under ethics. So in your book, there is ethics there. You want to make sure you scan, read that, go through it pretty well, so that if you go to the exam and there is something on ethics in respect of the syllabus context, you will be able to write something out as well in that particular case. So definitely your fundamental principles, you must know about them, integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, professional behavior, confidentiality, and the various threats. Those are the individual level stuff in that particular case. Then we need to know it on the organizational level in that particular case. Then we come to the financial strategy part. Again, this is an area that you really know about already. Just that, like I said earlier, we don't have a lot of financial issues in the pre-scene. The only issue we had in the pre-scene was, the the residual income that the finance director is asking the management accountant to calculate about. And the finance director said, oh, he doesn't want NPV. Now, that doesn't mean the examiner cannot ask you a question about NPV, because all of those things are under financial strategy. And so the financial strategy area, it's everything you know already from your financial management class, from your management accounting class, from your corporate reporting class. Anything the examiner will throw at you there, boom. So if the examiner asks you to prepare a budget, and then in the in the additional information, he gives you the information for the preparation of the cash budget. You prepare cash budget, and you learn cash budget in management accounting. If you have forgotten, go back and review it. That's under financial strategy. It is also the same place that, if you remember, I mentioned that the examiner could then throw us in the then of looking at the issue in respect of preparation of the the business plan. the preparation of the business plan. It's a 10 marks area the examiner can throw at you, because looking at where this company is, they said that, oh, they have spoken with the bank to raise the necessary finance for the new projects that they are undertaking. Okay, probably we would have to help them to prepare a business plan. So the examiner could ask you to prepare a business plan. So if you remember during our discussion in class, I told you about the business plan. So knowing the pro forma of the business plan is very important, and what you have to take into all of those things. Let's see if I can have my slide up here. Business plan. Can you hurry up and load? Okay, here we go. So this is just a sample business plan, and the examiner can ask us to prepare a business plan. Now, either he will ask you to prepare a whole business plan or just an extract, then he will give you the headings that he wants you to prepare for. That's still under financial strategy in that particular case. Because remember, if they are going to get a funding from the bank, or they are going to bring in a VC, a venture capital firm, they will need a business plan, and as a strategist or a consultant for the company, you would have to help them in the preparation of a business plan. So the examiner can throw you in that lion's den to ask you to prepare a business plan. He has brought that like 3 times in the last 8 examination diets for students to prepare the business plan. In one case, it was a full business plan. In other cases, it was except. So he will give you the various headings that he wants you to look out for. So we're going to have the executive summary, we're going to have the company description, and then some various other issues coming up there for us in the business plan. So please make sure that you look at the business plan preparation, because that is part of the issues available there that the examiner can throw at you. Because anytime an entity is seeking to make any strategic decision, they will need a business plan. For instance, if they now decide that they want to go and enter that joint venture arrangement with one of the companies outside of in the overseas country that they want to go into, then you have to prepare a business plan for them. So the examiner can ask you between 10 to 15 marks to prepare a business plan for the company, either the whole business plan or except of a business plan with specific headings that the examiner will give you. Now, in the preparation of a business plan, yes, we bring our executive summary, then we bring the company's description, then we bring the body of the executive summary, where we're going to bring in pistol analysis, some SWOT analysis information, competitive analysis. If you remember, we discussed all of these things, because there's also another extract here. So in your business plan preparation, yes, there will be a quick introduction about the company, what they do generally. I don't know. I think we've shared this document with you, right? I don't know. Let me know. Maybe we can share it with you just for you to have an idea. So there has to be some introduction in that particular case. Then the executive summary in that regard will be there. Then the body. The body is going to be covering first your environmental analysis. So some SWOT analysis will come there. Briefly, you talk about the strength. It's not now you're going to list all the strengths you have identified for the company. Darby, we don't have time for that. But key strength, write them down. Maybe 4, 3, 2, boom. Weaknesses, opportunities, threat. Then competitive analysis. If you remember in the question, we were told of a main competitor of the company. Again, you see, always when you're reading the case study, you got to ask yourself, why is the examiner telling me this? That's how you do case study analysis. Why is the examiner telling me this? Okay, the examiner has given you information about a key competitor. Why is that information? I don't know. Like I said, maybe he wants you to prepare a balance he wants you to prepare a business plan. And in the business plan, there has to be a competitive analysis. And when you're doing a competitive analysis in a business plan, you have to bring in that key competitor and bring out information about their strengths, weaknesses as a competitor, because then we can now design strategies to gain competitive advantage over them. So in the body of our business plan, The key competitor, again, if we are asked that question, then the key competitor that was given in the question, we are going to be writing their information here. Then market analysis. How is the market segmented? We spoke about that. I mean, the operations of Prestige is segmented into three major markets. They are building for they have premium homes, la creme de la creme. And so we said there they are using the differentiation strategy because you are building premium homes. Then we said in another one, they are building affordable homes for a wide range of customers. So we said that in that market segment, they are then going to adopt a cost leadership strategy, because how can you build affordable homes for a wide range of customers? It's only when you are using the cost leadership strategy. So that's the second segment of their market. And then the third segment of their market we mentioned was the low cost housing, which is targeted to attract young home buyers. And so we said that is focus cost leadership strategy. Focus cost leadership strategy, because they are concentrating on a niche of the market, young house buyers. And for the young house buyers, they are not providing la creme de la creme houses. No, they are providing low cost housing. So that is focused cost leadership strategy. So market segmentation, how they have segmented their markets, is going to be coming in. And is the market growing? Is the market declining? And all of those things will also be there in that particular case. Then if there are any financial projections, again, the only financial projection issue we have in the context of this question is for the Dodowa situation, as well as we have a little information about the new IT system that they want to implement. Right? So that's where your financial projection comes in. That is why I was talking to you about the cash budget preparation. It depends on the context of the question. In the additional information, if details about that is given, then you would have to prepare a cash budget or a cash forecast or whatever it is, and feed that information into the preparation of your business plan. So that's an area that the examiner can throw at you. And if the examiner asks you for a business plan, it's like he's bringing in a lot in one question, because you're going to be relying on some pistol. You're going to be relying on some SWOT. You're going to be relying on some Porter's 5 forces. You're going to be bringing in some financial issues if the unseen or the additional information provide you with those financial issues. So it's a huge part that the examiner could get goosebump for 10 or 15 marks in the exam. So please make sure you familiarize yourself again with it. Like I say always, it's not about the Preseen. It's about what is in the syllabus that you have to know about, and it is important you know about this. So that is also another thing that we must understand under the financial strategy. Other issues under the financial strategy will be those things that you learned in financial management, like sources of finance, right? Working capital management issues, dividend policy issues. Okay. If you remember in the question, we were told that they didn't pay dividend for, I think, last year or so, something like that. And so, why is the examiner telling us that? I don't know. But dividend policy issues, these are all in financial management. You learned them. And the examiner expects you to have known about them. So, you're on your own. What are the sources of finance to the company? Short term, long term. So if they are seeking to finance the Dodowa project, what are the sources of finance they can use to finance the Dodowa project? Equity finance, debt finance, Islamic finance, Muduraba, Ijara, Shakuk, Murabaha. Yeah, these are the Islamic finance. The examiner can ask you that because it's in your syllabus and you're supposed to know about it. Oh, I learned Islamic finance those days. I've forgotten the the examiner, if he asks you, go and do to the examiner. So sources of finance, like you're supposed to know about it. Working capital management, you're supposed to know about it. What do we mean by overtrading, undertrading, and all that? It's in your syllabus. You're supposed to know about it. Dividend policy, zero dividend policy, residual dividend policy, constant dividend policy, constant growth in dividend policy. These are all dividend policies you must understand. Yeah, I know. Again, it looks like, yeah, the more we go, the the less your brain think it has in it. I understand, but it's not my fault. It is your fault. So these are the financial strategy aspect. And for your information, there's some 20K there waiting for you. What is it going to be? I don't know. When you get there tomorrow, you ask the examiner. But there is a 20K there waiting for you. Maximum, but minimum 10-ish question waiting for you about financial strategy. And like I said, it will come from any area, like a business plan, doing MPV, calculating RI, sources of finance, working capital management, dividend policy, and all those financial issues you are supposed to know about. That's it. We done. Financial strategy. Then we come to the last aspect, which is waiting for you. 20 marks maximum. I love it. Governance. It's a done deal area waiting for you. So why not read it and know everything there? Oh, okay. And in the question, there is nothing about governance. It looks like we don't care about your precinct. Sorry, the examiner doesn't care about your precinct. Analysis. It's about what is in the syllabus. So corporate governance is crucial. It's a done deal area, maximum 20 marks. It's waiting for you. So everything about governance, you have to know about it. Everything about governance. There is no area of focus. Everything about governance, you have to know about it, because there's a 20 marks question waiting for you in the exam hall. Maximum. If the examiner doesn't get excited, 15. And usually that is the last question or the last but one question. It's the last or the last but one question. Corporate governance issues. So what are the things here you got to look at? Certainly you're going to look at the board structure. I mean, there are a lot of things here, but the board structure. We have the unitary board system, and then we have the two-tier board system. The two-tier board system is where we have the board, and then we have a supervisory board, and that is really not what we use in Ghana, because that is used in, I think, in Germany and China and some other part of the world. But in the UK and Ghana, we use the unitary board system, where we have just one board, and then we just come and look at the various committees of the board and all that, and that's all. So board structure, very important. Then the committees of the board, their responsibilities, their roles, and membership. The examiner can ask you, what are the importance of having the audit committee, risk management committee, remuneration committee, nomination committee? What are their roles? What are their responsibilities? What is the membership? Then these guys, non-executive directors, why should they be part of the board? Not only non-executive directors, but independent non-executive directors. The examiner can ask you a question about them. Diversity of the board, like what makes a board effective? Again, normally the questions about governance, the examiner has two ways to go. One, contextualize. Based on the part of the question will be contextualized based on the case. Then the other part of the question will be generic, meaning it's in the syllabus, has nothing to do with the case. But what he has done most of the time is nothing in the case is what he's excited about. He throws you in the lion's den. Generic. That is why I said everything under governance, you must know about it. It is a 20 marks area. Everything. How can I go through everything under governance at this time of the night? I don't care. You called it on yourself. So what does it mean when we say a board is effective? We got to know about that. All right? That's there for us to know about. So governance is a crucial part here. What are the roles of but the chairman of the board and the CEO. And why should we separate the role? Why is it not advisable for one person to be the board chairman and the CEO? Now, in the context of this question, the board chairman is different from the CEO prestige in the context of the case. But again, we are not mindful of, we don't care about the Preseen, we care about what is in the syllabus, right? So what are the roles of a board chairman? What are the roles of a CEO of a company? And then why is it not advisable for one person to handle these two roles? It's a question the examiner can ask you about, and you have to know about it as well if you go to the exam hall, because it's a governance issue. It's a governance issue. Then we come to those other aspects. The governance principles. OECD, the UK Governance Code, Ghana's Governance Code, the Commonwealth Governance Code. Which one will come? I don't know. The examiner can ask you questions from each of them. He has asked questions a couple of times from the OECD. He has asked questions a couple of times from the Ghana's code. Now, it's not just about reading the code, because the examiner can just pick one of the principles under a certain governance code and ask you a question about it. There was a time he asked a question about directors' remuneration as per the Ghana's governance code. And so that is, and it was, I don't know, is it 7 or 8 marks question, 5 or 8 marks question? So directors' remuneration, that is a principle under the Ghana's governance code. So the examiner just picked that principle and asked students what the principle says about the determination of directors' remuneration. So you have to do a deep dive here. It's not your normal, OECD, this is how it is, UK, You got to do a deep dive, because the examiner can do a deep dive with you in the exam hall. So I don't know tomorrow as you go which of these could be there or whether none of them will be there. I don't know. But it is important you know the OECD principles, you know the UK governance codes, you know the Ghana's governance code, you know the Commonwealth code. But there is a trick which I told you about, that for the most part, all these 4 codes have some things in common. There is going to be something about directors, the role of directors somewhere in all of them. Remuneration of directors will be somewhere in all of them. The right of shareholders will be somewhere in all of them. The structure of the board and the nature of the board will be somewhere in all of them. So we discussed the similarities among these 4 things, because they are just sort of the same thing restated in a different way. Are you getting it? The same thing restated in a different way. So governance principles, got to understand that very well. So everything about governance, you have to know about it. Everything. You cannot leave anything out, because you don't know what the examiner will ask you. And to make it even more exciting for you, governance issues in not-for-profit making organizations. Again, that's a lion dance question that the examiner could ask you. So that is what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying everything about governance, what we discussed about governance, make sure you understand it very well. Because remember, in corporate governance, there is ethics. We discuss how it links. And then we also discuss corporate social responsibility, because they are all linked to governance. If you're talking about corporate governance, ethics is there, corporate social responsibility is there. And so it is important you understand all of these, because your 20 marks is going to be dancing around those issues. But that is corporate governance. Again, yes, it's a lengthy area, it's a broad area, it's a lot, but you have to know about it. Again, it's not about what you saw in the Preseen about the governance of prestige. I'm not interested in that. It's about what is in the syllabus about governance, Because when you know what is in the syllabus about governance, you have read the Preseen, you understand the Preseen, and it will still be in the exam hall. And if the examiner asks you a contextualization question to the Preseen, you know where to pick your thing up. So it's not about just the Preseen, it's about what is in the syllabus. So that is governance issues, 20 marks area waiting for you in the exam hall that you need to understand. And this is going to be your structure of the exam. So the 100 marks question that will be coming in the exam hall, these are the areas they will be coming from. Now, again, like I said, there are various other issues that I might not talk about. If you look at the context of this question, we are not giving information about it, but if you look at the context of this question as well, we have a parent company that has 3 subsidiaries, and the 3 subsidiaries provide different products. So these are premium homes, these are affordable homes, these are low cost homes. And you know that when an entity is selling more than one product, they would have to make a decision, or there may be a time that comes where they make a decision as to which of the product is really making them money that they should continue to sell or otherwise. So in that case, I don't know, until the examiner gives you some information in the unseen, in the additional information in the exam hall, BCG matrix, Shell directional policy matrix, okay, then McKinsey, and then GE matrix could come. The examiner could ask you. Again, it depends on the context of the additional information in the exam hall, but by virtue of the fact that the entity does or has more than one product line in place, we could be asked to analyze which of the 3 subsidiaries is doing well, maybe because of the financial issues they are facing and the fact that they want to go international. They may want to decide whether to keep or not to keep. Maybe they want to leave the affordable home industry and do la creme de la creme and the low cost housing for the youth. So if there are such decisions, then we may have to apply the BCG matrix principle, or apply the Shell directional policy matrix principle, or apply the McKinsey and GE principle, and you know the way those principles flow in. So that's still there. It's also in the syllabus that you have to know about. And there are various other issues that I've not spoken about, like human resource management, and all those things. They are all there. Under the organizational structure that I spoke to you about later on, formal organizational structure, informal organizational structure, all of those things are things you are expected to know about, because as this entity's operation is not rationalized, if you remember during the analysis, we discussed like the implication of that on the entity's operations. I don't know if you remember. Let's see, where is that slide? Let's see if I can see it and then show you what the heck I'm talking about here. Okay, business model, strategy stated. Where the heck do I have that? Okay, governance, key issues. No, here. Where did I give you that rationalization situation? Yeah, here. So the organizational structure of Prestige is currently not rationalized, which may be an issue of concern going into the future. And so we discussed what it means when an organizational structure is not rationalized. What features does it have, and why should they then have to rationalize their organizational structure? Give me a sec. Let me. Okay. And why would they have to rationalize their organizational structure? So these are the areas that the examiner will be bringing questions up. Like I said, it's about knowing what is in the syllabus, not your Preseen analysis that you have read. Because yes, there's going to be a question coming in from the Preseen, whether I like it or not. Like, there is going to be some questions that will be contextualized on the case. Yeah, we can't go away from that. But what we've seen the examiner doing over the period, and depending on how excited the examiner is, majority of the things the examiner will ask you, it won't occur to you in the analysis. That's the dangerous path. Like it won't cross your mind when you were reading the Preseen, but it's in the syllabus, so the examiner will ask you. Okay, the examiner will ask you. So this is the structure of your exam and what you need to expect. Now, in addition to knowing the structure of the exam, it is important we wrap up to look at what you have to do in the exam hall. Because you see, it's one thing to know the material, it's another thing to actually pass the examination, meaning write it up. So this is my recommendation to you on what you have to do in the exam hall when you get to the exam hall. In the exam hall, you're not going to take anything to the exam hall. I hope you know that already. And in case you have some bad mind in your head, to try to go and hide your analysis somewhere so that if you see a question that is in the analysis, you go and pick it. If they catch you, you are in trouble. So you're not going to take your analysis into the exam hall. So in the exam hall, you're going to have the Preseen and the additional information. So in the exam hall, what you want to do first is to quickly flip. If they say start reading, that 15-minute reading time, you quickly want to flip and go to the additional information and go and look at it. Please, that 15-minute reading time will not be enough for you. So when they say start work, don't start writing anything. Just take your time. You want to read through the additional information. Why? Because 99.99% of the time, a lot of conclusions that you have reached in the Preseen analysis will be thrown into the dustbin by the additional information. So you want to quickly read that additional information. You already know the Preseen. Like you know where everything is in the Preseen. By now you should know that. You should have it like a graph in your head so that you know exactly which part of the Preseen a certain information is, so you can pick and refer if you have to do that. By now you should be able to do that. So you want to go to the additional information and read it to find out whether there is something that is changing a certain conclusion you had reached earlier. Because remember, if you reach a conclusion in the Preseen and in the unseen, the examiner gives you an additional information that makes that conclusion useless, that means you cannot use it. So you want to read the additional information. Please read everything. Because some of you think reading the question is a waste of time. I don't know why you came up with that. Read all the additional information. As you are reading, you are marking out, underlining, highlighting. You remember the way we messed up our document for the most part. You are highlighting key issues that are coming up that you have to pay attention to and drawing some additional conclusion on the Preseen. When you finish, you want to now go into the requirements of the question. Going into the requirements of the question is where you need to prepare an answer plan. Listen carefully. So you open your answer booklet, maybe the first page and the second page, you're going to do an answer plan there. What is an answer plan? An answer plan is the arrangement of your thoughts before you start writing. Do not write anything on your question paper because you're going to take your question paper home. And the examiner will not come to your home, to your house and come and mark the answers you've written on the question paper. So you want to have an answer plan. So when you read question 1, oh, it's about this. The points that you quickly remember, you come and write it down. You're not explaining, you're just writing the points down. Because you don't want to write it in the question paper. So you read through all the questions and the various ideas, pointers, models, framework, answers, points, everything. Because you just entered the exam hall, your brain is very fresh. So you are reading through all the questions, then you have the answers in your answer plan. So it could be the first page, the second page, and probably the third page. All that your answer plan. And you're just writing the points down. No explanation, because you will do the explanation later on. Again, don't write anything in your question or on your question paper. Now, when you finish reading all the requirements, you've gathered your thoughts, you've written all your points down, then you decide, which one can I start best first? Okay, so you start with your strength. So among the 10 questions, depending on how excited the examiner is, it could be 10 questions, or it could be 8 questions, it could be 7 questions. Which one can you start best first, depending on the way you have arranged your thoughts in the answer plan? Then you flip to a fresh page and start with that. Please note, you are not under obligation to answer questions in any order, but you start with what you can do best first. So if it is the question 1B, you can answer first, go to the fresh page, answer it. If after that it is question 8C, you can answer, go to a fresh page, question 8C, answer it. Does that make sense? Now, by the time you start writing out the actual explanations, like you have the pointers in your answer plan. Now, this is the trick. Time is going to be your enemy in the exam hall. So even if you are not able to finish writing out all the answers and explaining them, they are in the answer booklets under your answer plan. Yes, at the end of the day, you are supposed to cross it out, because that is an answer plan. Even if you cross it out and you are not able to write out, explain all the points later on, they are in the answer booklet. And when you submit that, when the examiner is marking, they will look at that answer plan, and if there is anything that you didn't get time to explain later, it will be marked and you will get some coins marks. That is why you don't have to write anything on your question paper, because if you waste the time writing the answers on your question paper and you don't get time to come and write it or explain it, that question paper, you are taking it to your house, and like I told you, the examiner will not come to your house and come and mark. Number 2, the reason why I said also to read all the question is because you don't want to finish and later on somebody will come, or you are looking at the paper again, you'll be like, oh, there was this question there, I didn't see it. Oh, I didn't read all the question. Oh. Yeah, you failed already. We will welcome you next semester. Like you failed already. Like you know you have failed. So that is why I said read all the questions. But be careful when you are reading, so you don't digress in your answering. Okay, so read additional information, go through all the questions, and as you are reading the questions, make sure you understand the context of the question, and then have an answer plan out. After the answer plan, start with your strength, what you can do best first, which means that in addition to the 15 minutes reading time, you can take an additional maybe 15 minutes to read through all the questions and prepare your answer plan. It's not a waste of time. It is arranging your thoughts. Because you see, when you get to the middle or the third quarter of the examination, that is where probably you will start saying, oh, you've gone to read a question and now you are trying to recollect the point. And you may not be able to recollect it, because by then your heart is beating at a rate that cannot allow your brain to function well. That is why the answer plan is important. So in the beginning, as you have read the additional information and you've taken time to read through all the questions and have arranged your thoughts as they are fresh with you in the answer plan, now when you start writing, you are just explaining the points that you have written down in your answer plan. That means less thinking. So in the third quarter that others are chewing their pen and hitting their head with their pen, you already have your points down. You are not trying to remember anything, because for the most part, you have written most of the things down already in your answer plan. So you're just referring to the answer plan and then explaining it later on. So in addition to the 15-minute reading time, you can take another 15 or 20 minutes to read through all the questions, make sure you understand everything well, and prepare an answer plan. It will help you. I know 99.9% of you, this is nonsense. You're not going to do it. I know you're not going to do it. But that's what you need to know about. That's what you need to know about. So you don't have to think later on. Number 2, so you don't write your key point in the question paper or on the question paper, which you will take to your house, which the examiner will not see to mark and give you some marks so you can pass the examination. So the answer plan is key. So start with your strength first, as always. Remember, grammar is very critical here. Your English, this is an English paper. And for those of you who have been doing, we did assignments and all those things when we're in class, you know what you're supposed to do. Keep it sweet, simple, straight to the point. No unnecessary English. Keep it sweet, simple, straight to the point. That doesn't mean you just write one line and go away. Because if they say explain the factors that the entity should consider before going international, and you're using pastel framework, you got to make sure you explain all the political factors well. You got to make sure you explain all the economic factors well. You got to make sure you explain all the social factors well. So, but I mean, keep it sweet, simple, straight to the point. No digression. No unnecessary statements. So, your grammar, your English, very important. Number 5, time is going to be your enemy. So, discipline yourself in the exam hall when it comes to your timing. Which means you're going to work on your emotions. And I've said this to you over and over again in the last 4 days. So, got to discipline yourself. Time will be your enemy. You're going to panic. Some of you will be like, something has hit your heart. Because before you realize, oh, the time is gone, and you start shaking. Yeah, by that time, if you're not careful, you failed the exam already. And it's heartbreaking because some people go to the exam, come out with 6%. 6! 15! 18! 10! What the heck did you do in the 3 hours? So you got to be careful. Got to discipline yourself. Got to work on your emotion. Be mindful. That is why, to make sure you discipline yourself and to make sure you don't panic a lot and work under pressure, that is why the answer plan will be a key thing. Because one of the reasons why people start panicking in the exam hall is if they read a question and they know the answer, but now they can't recollect the answer because you are in the 3rd quarter of the examination. 45 minutes to go. 30 minutes to go. That time, you are under pressure. But if you have had an answer plan and read through all the 10 or 8 questions or whatever the heck number of questions the examiner will bring, and you had written the points down in your answer plan, there will be no panicking. Because when you get there, you are just explaining it. And since the point is already there, you just write the point, and the explanation, for the most part, is likely to flow. That is why, to reduce the emotional trauma, the pressure, and the time issue, I want you to commit some 15 minutes in addition to the reading time and go through all the questions and prepare an answer plan. It is to help you in the exam hall. Finally, you're not going to finish all the questions. I know you don't want to hear that, but that is the reality. And if you have written the case study paper before, you know that is the reality. You can't answer all the questions. That's the truth. You can't answer all the questions because before you realize, the time is gone. But like I said, if you have your answer plan, and as you read the questions in the beginning, because the things are fresh in your brain, you're able to write all the points down, then you have a chance of attempting a lot of the questions. So these are the things that I want to share with you generally as you enter the exam hall tomorrow at 9 a.m. Read the additional information, read through all the questions so you can prepare your answer plan in the answer booklet. The first page, second page, if it means going to the third page, is your answer booklet. Then you start with what you can do best first. That is very important. You want to start winning from the beginning, because immediately you start with a question and you're able to answer the question well, or you get stuck in the middle, then you stop, then you take another question, you're likely to get stuck again, and that's where you start panicking, and that's where you start failing. And because of the structure of case study, and I tell you this always, immediately you start panicking, all your blood vessels are just coming to your heart and your brain is not operating at its optimum. So everything you've learned, you will find it difficult to recollect. And so you want to control your emotions well, hold your breath very well, and be able to stay. Don't look at what somebody is doing on your right or your left. Focus. This is how you can pass the case study examination. If you understand the various things that I've discussed with you, and you go to the exam hall and you do the things the way I am telling you to do now, you should be able to pass the case study examination. But if you get to the exam hall and some delulu comes over you and you do whatever the heck you like, I still gonna pray for you that everything you do will be successful. But your chance of passing the exam will be very slim if you don't do some of these things well. Finally, I want you to review your work when you finish. Again, I know you're not going to do it, but I'm going to tell you that. Review your work. When you hear get ready to stop work, if you are lucky and the invigilators tell you that, get ready to stop work, probably you have 15 minutes to go, or probably 10 minutes to go. Because this is purely written paper, there may be some calculation, but largely written paper, you want to drop your pen and go over the things that you have written. Because remember, your brain may be saying something, but the pen may be writing a different thing. And sometimes the chief examiner's reports and the kinds of things people write, spelling mistake, lack of proper subject-verb agreement, because people don't review their work. Yeah, I know. 15 minutes to time, Nhyira. This is that time that, some idea is coming, some rapport is coming. It's good. But what you have written so far, if you have grammatical errors in them, spelling mistakes in them, then you are just using the baskets to visit or go to the riverside. You're going to reach home and there is nothing in the basket. So my recommendation is get ready to stop work, take 5 minutes and try to read some of the things that you have written, making sure that the is, there, and some spelling issues, you've dealt with them pretty well. And if you do that, definitely you should be able to go to the exam hall and pass the examination. So these are some of the things that I want to share with you tonight. Let me know if there are any other questions. Yesterday I blocked those people, but it's like there is a lot of foolishness on social media, a lot. I'm done. If there are any questions for me, any follow-up questions for me, then I can take. If not, then we can do a goodbye in that particular case. Give me a sec. Let me see if I can bring this up. I don't know why some people would want to come and post their nonsense under videos like that, because it's important nobody gets scammed under my post, and I'm very mindful of that. Okay. Yes, Clement, your hand is up. What you got?
Sure, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Good to see you again.
All right.
Please, can can you do a quick review on the how do you call it? The terms that uh they normally use to ask the question that it will let you know you are using this model or not. Yeah.
The, there is no specific thing that I can say, but I told you a couple of things. Like, for instance, if the examiners say, okay, analyze the uh, competitive or the factors that will enable the organization to gain competitive advantage in the industry, then we are using Porter's five forces, right? It means competitive analysis. So it depends usually, because I cannot give just one blueprint, because the choice of words and the phrasing of the question varies every semester. So if you go through, say, the past questions, you realize that there are a couple of dice that the examiner brings pistol, but the way he phrases the questions are different. So it will be hard for me to give you generic things. But what I would say is that is why I said take your time to read the question. If you take your time to read the question well, there will be some clues in there. Like I said, if they say, oh, what are the factors? If anything about competitiveness, that means Porter's five forces would have to come into our mind. Anything about environmental factors that will influence the entity. Okay, environmental factors that will influence the entity. Then macro environmental analysis can be done. So the PESTEL framework can be used. All right. So I wish I can give you some bomb that will be done deal, guide you throughout, but it's hard because the phrasing of the question always changes, but there will always be some clues in there. If you take your time well to read the question well, you should be able to draw an inspiration to know, okay, this is the model I'm supposed to use, or this is how I'm supposed to answer the question. Okay, so that is the idea there about that, Clement. I wish I could give you just one liner issues, but the phrasing of the questions could vary various times. So that's the deal there. Um,
Uh, and yeah, thank you, Sha. And also one last question. You always say that uh, normally the additional information will make the analysis that you've drawn like look different also.
I
With that
didn't
one, I
say
don't.
I didn't say
Yeah.
will. I said may, because they could say something that we had reached a certain conclusion earlier. So may, not will. So finish up with your question.
So does it mean that the the Preseen document is still not complete without the additional information?
Yes, the whole case is incomplete without the additional information, because the additional information then makes the case complete. Does that make sense? The additional information makes the case complete. So even if you remember in the pre-scene, there was some conclusion you reached at the top, but then when you read to the bottom or to the end, certain statements were there that made you say, oh, then what the conclusion I had earlier was wrong. Even in the pre-scene, we had that. So the unseen or the additional information makes the case complete generally. So it doesn't mean that's why we are not just using the pre-scene. The additional information makes the case complete. So that is the idea. That's what I meant by that. That even in the pre-scene, we read something, you read something above, reach a conclusion, but later on in the as you continue reading the pre-scene, something came that made you change your mind about a certain conclusion. That's the same thing that I'm talking about. That in the additional information, there may be something that is changing a certain conclusion that you had reached. And Nuntina, it is important you read the additional information to find out, can I still hold the conclusion that I had, in the Preseen, or there is an additional information that is changing that is throwing more light on what I thought was a problem, because now it is no longer a problem. So you just have to be mindful of that one. What else? Also, then, can you share the business plan with us? Okay, all right. It'll be sent to you so that you can use in that case. So that's it about that. We wish you all the best. Like I said, look at the key issues. So if there is any work you are supposed to do now, don't look at Preseen analysis or whatever the heck. Just look at those key issues and find out the areas in those key issues that you don't have strength in, and review those things, right? But most importantly, what you do in the exam hall, I want you to be mindful of that. Read through all the questions. It's important to me. And make sure you prepare an answer plan. It's important to me, because the things are almost fresh in your mind when you walk into the exam hall. So you are likely to come up with better answers in that beginning time, because your brain is literally a virgin, in a virgin period at that time, because the things are fresh in your brain. But if you delay it later, you may struggle to recollect them later. That's why you need the answer plan. So that's it about that. Wish you all the best as you go in tomorrow, and then, we wish to see some of you at graduation ceremony later on in the year. And those of you who have other papers also, I don't know why you write case study before other papers, but those of you who have other papers also, we'll see you in April. So that's it about that. Au revoir.